He's having trouble breathing, his pulse is dropping. In the emergency room of the military hospital, doctors and nurses were rushing frantically around Ibrahim Traoré. The young leader of Burkina Faso had fallen ill immediately after dinner, carried to the hospital in the arms of his guards. Dr. Samira Kone frowned as she carefully examined Traoré's blood tests. This is not an ordinary poisoning, we've detected a chemical substance. A deliberate intervention. In the corridor, Colonel Zongo could see the pale face of the young president, who had taken office just 3 months ago, through the window of the hospital room. His phone rang, members of the Security Council were requesting an emergency meeting. The news of Traoré's critical condition was spreading rapidly through the capital, despite attempts to keep it secret. As he was ending the call, a sudden movement from the hospital room caught his attention. Traoré had opened his eyes and sat up with surprising strength. "Colonel," he said in a weak but determined voice, "record this room. I have something to say." A big mining company came, they found gold. Colonel Zongo immediately entered. Traoré's face was pale, his lips were dry, but the determination in his eyes had not dimmed. "Mr. President, how are you feeling?" he asked with concern. "I'm not dead, Colonel," said Traoré, with a slight smile. "But someone was very intent on making that happen." Traoré bowed his head. Dr. Kone interrupted. "Mr. President, your condition is still critical. We haven't been able to completely clear the poison from your system. Please rest." Instead of his military uniform, he wore a simple shirt and pants, and set out with only 2 security officers. Traoré continued speaking without looking at the doctor. Where did the poison come from? Fields where he had run with friends, the stream where he had swum, trees he had climbed. Colonel Zongo and Dr. Kone exchanged glances. "From your dinner, Mr. President. Initial findings indicate that a powerful chemical was mixed into your food." "What is this? The kitchen staff?" "A gold mine, sir," the driver replied. "All in custody," said Zongo. "They're being questioned. But this looks like professional work. Not the job of a simple cook." The once vibrant and cheerful village square was now filled with piles of garbage. Traoré tried to take a deep breath, but the pain in his chest stopped him. "Listen to me," he said, his voice slightly trembling. "No one should know I've been poisoned. Just the news that I'm in the hospital is enough. Announce that my condition is stable and that I'll be discharged soon." A few villagers came running at the sound. Dr. Kone said in surprise, "But Mr. President, your condition is really very serious. You may need to stay here for days." "Ibrahim Traoré." "That's exactly why," said Traoré. "Those who tried to kill me shouldn't think they've failed. Let them move freely, cover their tracks. And we'll catch them." Now he had aged, grown thin, his eyes sunken. Colonel Zongo nodded. "I understand, Mr. President. The Security Council is requesting an emergency meeting. What would you like me to tell them?" The elderly chief pointed to the hill at the upper side of the village. "Tell them my condition is critical but stable. And..." Traoré paused for a moment, a cold anger flashing in his eyes. "And make it absolutely clear that we need no foreign intervention, no French doctors, no foreign assistance. Now we're dying of illness." "Yes, Mr. President." "Mr. President, congratulations." As Colonel Zongo was leaving the room, Traoré's weak but determined voice stopped him. "And Colonel, form a special team from men you trust. They will report only to you. Investigate all palace personnel, all visitors, all phone records. Especially within the last month. But all they gave us was sickness and death." Zongo nodded and left the room. In the corridor, a group of high-ranking officers and ministers were waiting. All had concern on their faces. "How is he?" asked the defense minister, stepping forward. "The president's condition is stable," said Zongo in an official voice. "Our doctors are making all necessary interventions. We don't need any foreign intervention." She asked in an astonished voice. "Is this an assassination attempt?" asked the interior minister, lowering his voice. "We can't say anything definitive yet," said Zongo diplomatically. "But we're working on all possibilities. I will provide more detailed information at the Security Council meeting." For the first time in years, hope appeared on their faces. After the ministers left, Zongo immediately summoned 3 officers he trusted. A special team was formed. Their duty was to examine everyone in the palace, every detail, and report only to Colonel Zongo. The first suspect, naturally, was the palace's head chef, Marcel Caboret. An experienced chef who had worked in the palace for 20 years, serving the previous 2 presidents as well. In the first interrogation, Caboret appeared shocked and saddened. "How could I harm the president?" he cried. "I just cook the food. I prepare everything myself. The tasters also check every meal." "But your voice wasn't strong then." This caught the team's attention. Yes, in the palace, every meal was checked by tasters before being presented to the president. But where were they? A quick investigation revealed that the 2 tasters on duty that evening had fallen ill about an hour after the meal. However, their symptoms were not as severe as Traoré's, and they had not been hospitalized. This indicated that the poison had been added to the food after the tasting. But how? Who was with Traoré at the table? Video recordings were examined. Traoré had dinner in his private study with 3 close advisors: Foreign Affairs Advisor Pierre Ouedraogo, Economy Advisor Jean Caboret, and Chief of Staff Matthew Sanu. All 3 advisors were immediately questioned. All were shocked, all claimed to be innocent. But one detail was striking: Pierre Ouedraogo had left the room several times during the meal to talk on the phone. Colonel Zongo ordered an examination of Pierre's phone records. The results were striking. Pierre had spoken with a number at the French embassy 27 times in the last month. And the most recent call was just minutes before Traoré's poisoning at dinner. When Zongo returned to the hospital with this information, Traoré's condition had worsened. Dr. Cohn said the poison was stronger than they had estimated. Is his life in danger? Asked Zongo with concern. We're at a critical stage right now, said Cohn. The next 12 hours will be decisive. But the president is a strong man. He's fighting. Traoré's face was pale, his lips were dry, but the determination in his eyes had not dimmed. Zongo entered Traoré's room. The young leader looked pale and exhausted. But his eyes were still open. What did you find, Colonel? He asked in a weak voice. Zongo told him what they had found about Pierre Ouedraogo. The phone records, the suspicious behavior during the meal. Arrest him, said Traoré. And call the French ambassador to my office immediately. Instead of his military uniform, he wore a simple shirt and pants, and set out with only 2 security officers. But Mr. President, your condition. Where did the poison come from? Colonel, if the next 12 hours are critical, I can't waste my time. The ambassador will come to my office. And he will find me there. Initial findings indicate that a powerful chemical was mixed into your food. Dr. Cohn strongly objected, but Traoré was determined. He was taken to the presidential palace in a special ambulance, under strict security measures. There, accompanied by special doctors, he began waiting for the French ambassador in his office. A wave of shock spread among the palace staff. The news that Traoré had been poisoned but was still standing was like a ray of hope. But everyone was asking the same question: who would want to kill the president, and why? French ambassador Bernard Leclerc arrived at the palace in the evening. There was a concerned expression on his face. When he entered Traoré's office, the scene that greeted him was surprising. Traoré, pale but erect, was sitting behind his desk. On his face was a cold look rather than a diplomatic smile. Mr. Ambassador, said Traoré, please sit down. Announce that my condition is stable and that I'll be discharged soon. Mr. President, said Leclerc, trying to hide his surprise, I heard about your illness. I would like to convey my wishes for a speedy recovery. You may need to stay here for days. Thank you, said Traoré, his tone icy. But it wasn't an illness, it was an assassination attempt. And the traces lead all the way to your embassy. Let them move freely, cover their tracks. Leclerc's face paled. This is a very serious accusation, Mr. President. I don't understand what you mean. I understand, Mr. President. My Foreign Affairs Advisor Pierre Ouedraogo has spoken with a number at your embassy 27 times in the last month. The last call was minutes before I was poisoned at dinner. Is this a coincidence? Tell them my condition is critical but stable. There can be discussions within the framework of diplomatic relations, Mr. President. But to think this has anything to do with an assassination attempt. And make it absolutely clear that we need no foreign intervention, no French doctors, no foreign assistance. Traoré pressed a button on his desk. Colonel Zongo entered with a file in his hand. Mr. Ambassador, said Traoré, in this file is Pierre Ouedraogo's confession. He has confessed to adding poison to my food on instructions from your embassy. And he said the sole purpose was to prevent Burkina Faso's rapprochement with Russia. They will report only to you. Leclerc was now sweating. This must be a misunderstanding. France respects the sovereignty of Burkina Faso, such a thing. In the corridor, a group of high-ranking officers and ministers were waiting. Now you have to respect it, said Traoré, his voice rising. Because Burkina Faso is no longer anyone's backyard. Not France's, not America's, not any other powers. And I am ready to die for my people's freedom. I wanted you to know that. We don't need any foreign intervention. Before Leclerc could answer, Traoré continued. I'm giving you 48 hours. Within this time, you will close your embassy and leave the country with all diplomatic personnel. Our diplomatic relations are suspended until the real culprits behind this incident are revealed. Colonel Zongo ordered an examination of Pierre's phone records. "Mr. President, please think rationally. This could lead to an international crisis. France is your most important trading partner in Africa and..." When Zongo returned to the hospital with this information, Traoré's condition had worsened. 48 hours, Mr. Ambassador, said Traoré, cutting him off. "You may go now?" asked Zongo with concern. Leclerc rose helplessly and left the room. After Colonel Zongo saw him out at the door, he returned to Traoré's side. "Mr. President, France's reaction will be harsh. Economic sanctions, international pressures." Zongo entered Traoré's room. "I know, Colonel," said Traoré in a tired voice. "But there's no turning back now. If we're not going to fight for this country's true independence, why are we here?" he asked in a weak voice. Zongo nodded. "What about your health? Dr. Cohn says your condition is still critical. And call the French ambassador to my office immediately." "Then," said Traoré, "I need to address the nation. Immediately. Arrange a live broadcast." "Colonel, if the next 12 hours are critical, I can't waste my time." 2 hours later, all Burkina Faso television and radio stations switched to an extraordinary broadcast. On screens, from the office of the presidential palace, Ibrahim Traoré's pale but determined face appeared. "My dear citizens," he said, his voice stronger than expected. "Today, I am addressing you not only as a president, but as a brother, a son, a Burkinabe. Last night, during dinner, I was poisoned. This was an assassination attempt. Its purpose was to halt our country's steps toward independence." The news that Traoré had been poisoned but was still standing was like a ray of hope. Millions of Burkinabe in front of their screens listened in shock. "But they failed," Traoré continued. "Because you can kill a leader, but you can never kill a people's desire for freedom. And that is why I now want to announce to you a historic decision." Traoré, pale but erect, was sitting behind his desk. Traoré lifted a document from the table. "With this decree, we are suspending all diplomatic relations with France. We demand the withdrawal of all French military bases from our country. And we will reassess the activities of French companies in our country. I would like to convey my wishes for a speedy recovery." The shock of even the cameraman in the studio could be felt. "I know these decisions herald difficult days. We will face economic challenges. We will encounter international pressures. But I ask you, isn't it worth paying this price for true independence? Isn't it worth waging this struggle so that our children can be the true owners of their own lands? This is a very serious accusation, Mr. President." Traoré leaned toward the camera, a determined sparkle in his eyes. "Today, I am speaking to our former colonizers and their supporters. Burkina Faso is now a free country. We make our own decisions. We manage our own resources. And we stand courageously against any threat to our sovereignty. Tell them my condition is critical but stable." As he spoke his final words, Traoré's voice trembled, but not from weakness, from emotion. "And to you, my dear people, I want to say just one thing: do not be afraid. There will be difficult days, but we will overcome them together. Because we are Burkinabe. We are people who know how to stand tall, to live free. And for this, I will fight until my last breath if necessary. May God protect Burkina Faso." And he said the sole purpose was to prevent Burkina Faso's rapprochement with Russia. When the broadcast ended, there was a silence throughout the country. Then, slowly, people began to take to the streets. First in small groups, then in thousands, tens of thousands. In the center of Ouagadougou, at October Revolution Square, the crowd began to gather. They held Burkina Faso flags in their hands, on their lips was a single slogan, Traoré. Independence. Freedom. Because Burkina Faso is no longer anyone's backyard. At the palace, Traoré had retreated to his room after the speech and was alone with Colonel Zongo. "Mr. President, the people are in the streets. They support you. We don't need any foreign intervention." "I know, Colonel," said Traoré with a tired smile. "But this is just the beginning. France will not accept this decision. Economic sanctions, maybe worse, will come. But we're working on all possibilities. Our army is ready, Mr. President. We will fight to the last soldier." After the ministers left, Zongo immediately summoned 3 officers he trusted. "I hope we don't reach that point," said Traoré. "But we must be prepared for every possibility. And now, Colonel, I would like you to give me permission to rest. My body is still fighting the poison." In the first interrogation, Caboret appeared shocked and saddened. Zongo saluted the president and left the room. Outside, in the corridors of the palace, all staff were in a tense but proud wait. Everyone was impressed by the courage of their young leader. The next morning, the world press carried the developments in Burkina Faso to their headlines. Headlines such as Traoré challenges France, Burkina Faso declares independence, a new era in Africa adorned the front pages of international newspapers. France's reaction was not delayed. The foreign minister characterized Burkina Faso's decision as unacceptable and distorting the facts. Threats of economic sanctions and diplomatic pressures quickly began to come. But an unexpected development occurred. Mali, Niger, and Guinea made statements of support for Burkina Faso. These countries were also waging similar struggles to break free from French influence. And countries like Russia and China promised economic and military support to Burkina Faso. Traoré appeared before the people again a week after the poisoning incident, though his health had not yet fully recovered. He spoke in October Revolution Square, before hundreds of thousands of people. His voice had not regained its usual strength, but his words were powerful. "A week ago, someone wanted to kill me to stop our country's march to independence," he told the crowd. But they failed. Because this movement is not of one person, but of an entire people. With the arrival of the mining company, a wave of excitement had initially spread through the village. The crowd applauded wildly. And today, I want to give you good news. France has agreed to close its military bases and withdraw its diplomatic personnel. This is our first victory. But not the last. He may know about the plans. Another storm of applause broke out. Difficult days await us, Traoré continued. Economic challenges, international pressures. But we, the children of Thomas Sankara, do not know how to bow in the face of difficulties. We stand tall, we walk bravely. Asked Traoré. When Traoré came to the end of his speech, he gave a final message to the crowd, and let the whole world know this: you can poison a Burkinabe, but you can never poison Burkina Faso's desire for freedom. There used to be 400 families, now only 150 remain. This speech resonated not only in Burkina Faso but throughout Africa. Traoré's courageous stance after the assassination attempt ignited independence movements in many African countries. Mali, Niger, Guinea, and other former French colonies began to take similar steps. France tried various ways to stop this wave of independence in its former colonies. Economic sanctions, international embargoes, media campaigns. But it was too late now. Traoré's poisoning and subsequent brave stance had inspired all of Africa. A month after the poisoning incident, Traoré fully recovered. His health returned to its former strength, but his gaze was sharper, his decisions more clear. The French agents behind the assassination and their local collaborators were tried and sentenced to prison. Burkina Faso went through a difficult economic process. But new trade agreements with Russia, China, and other countries helped the country slowly recover. Most importantly, Burkina Faso's rich gold mines and other natural resources were now under the country's own control. Ibrahim Traoré entered African history with his post-poisoning speech. This speech was taught in schools, repeated in squares. And Traoré became one of the symbols of independence not only for Burkina Faso but for all of Africa. The deadly poisoning was designed to kill Traoré. But ironically, it strengthened him and the cause he represented. Sometimes, the brightest lights are born in the darkest moments. And Ibrahim Traoré's story was just such a story.